Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are so glad you are here. This is episode 3, and we are going to be talking about my food bottom. I'm Paige Alexander.
And I'm Jamie Morgan Reno. Our mission at Real Food Recovery is to help empower people to make life educated and life renewing decisions that promote physical, emotional health, longevity, vitality, peace, and wholeness. The best news about Real Food Recovery, we are food plan neutral. We welcome all, and we are processed food free. So excited to be here again with you, Paige.
Oh, I know. I love our time together. So let's go ahead and get into this topic of my food bottom. I think it's such an interesting topic because when you have discussions with people who have suffered from food addiction, they always have a story, right? There's always that pivotal moment in their life where things change. And it's usually during crisis time that people change when people are comfortable. They just kind of sail along and they might want to change, but they don't. So my food bottom it's important for us to talk about. And when I think about that in my own life, there was nothing that really jumped out at me. I feel like every day was my food bottom. Now, not when I was young, when I was before puberty, spindly kid. I hated it when my mother called me in for dinner. That was like torturous to have to take time out to eat because I just wanted to go out and play. So I had a good beginning as far as that. But hitting puberty, you start getting curves, you become more sedentary, and all of a sudden it was a situation I had never dealt with, and then that continued on, and I struggled with those enough extra pounds that I was on the periphery looking in, which was trauma. And then when you're isolated and alone because you might not get invited to the cool kids party or whatever, you're home alone, sedentary, and just with your food for comfort. So really every day in this addiction for me is a bottom. I can remember when I was on a girls' trip and I ate a bunch of chocolates out of my friend's box and I didn't say anything. It was a lie by omission. I heard her saying, "What happened to all these candies in here?" I knew I had eaten it. I was so humiliated, but I am telling you, I could not stop eating it, even though I knew it was almost on the level of stealing. It was
Yeah.
disgusting. I Even though my brain intellectually knew that is wrong and you are a noble, truthful person, why are you doing that? I literally couldn't stop the drug. Another moment for me was we were at a wedding, and weddings, big triggers. All I can think about is that bride. Does she have to walk that slow down the aisle? Because what stood between me and the cake was that lady in the white dress. And that's the only reason I was going to that wedding. Honestly, it's all I had on my mind is how quickly can I get to the dessert table and navigate which piece had the most intoxicating frosting or whatever it was,
Right.
so I could have that. And then, so at this one particular wedding, I remember thinking, I've got to have more. And I know I'm with a group of people. I'm going to pretend like I'm taking pictures of the wedding cake or the bride and work my way up there, slink my way up there. I think I had like 4 pieces of cake. I was in so much pain on the way home, mentally, emotionally. I mean, my stomach hurt from all of that. And do you know, still my brain was aching for more.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
still was sending that, it would not leave me alone. And I just didn't understand, and I didn't have the language at that time to rectify what was going on because I was so controlled everywhere else. But once I started in, it's like this aura would wash over me. I couldn't get back to that cake table fast enough, and I didn't care who saw. I was trying really hard to be sneaky, but how embarrassing, how humiliating. I It was the most important thing in the room to me.
Mhm.
So every day was a bottom, and even on the days that I ate well, I was just waiting for it to hit me, and
Yep.
I was just like this defenseless victim of, I don't know when it's gonna come. I don't know what I do to trigger it. I know, like, driving in the car sometimes sets it off, or if I'm bored, that sets it off, Weekends are terrible. I fear going out to eat or vacations. My goodness, that's so out of my control. I could try and keep things under control as much as possible
At home,
here,
right, right.
but trying to live in the world and do things that other normal people did, going out to dinner with my spouse on the weekend, I mean, we just never did that. And I feel sorry for him, but I just am like, no, I'll cook because it was too fearful. I remember a couple inviting us over for dinner and like, oh, I'll bring the food. And she's like, you want to bring the food over to our house? Oh, yeah, I want to try out these new recipes. I mean, I was trying everything I could do to control the situation because I lived in fear
Mhm.
every single day, every minute of every day. That when you have this addiction, it just organizes itself around your entire life. So I don't really have a specific that jumps out. It's just all bad.
Yeah, yeah, well,
From
daily.
12 on, it's just all bad until a couple years ago when I started a recovery program and found a way out. And I now looking back, I could never go back there. It would kill me. I would never
Prison.
go back there. So dark.
It's a
So
prison.
it's a mental prison. It's a torture chamber all
Mm.
the time. And you just, until you're in recovery, you can't figure out how to get out of this.
Mhm.
And it's just a dark hole, dark hole. So it sounds like you've had some similar experiences.
Yeah, for sure, and, I we talked in episode 2 about, when I was growing up and a kid. I mean, I ate very since from a very young age. I overate and used food to numb. And so I would say that I skidded along my bottom for many years, decades. And I didn't really have a one, like you were sharing, Paige. I didn't have one specific time where this was my bottom and I knew it per se. But I would say that there was a paradigm shift for me, and the true bottom that I like to think about it is that paradigm shift when I all of a sudden, I had gone through this physical transformation, and 2014, and I had lost a bunch of weight and had gotten me some media attention, and Steve Harvey invited me on his talk show. And I was standing there on the stage of Steve Harvey, and I, was being interviewed by him, and it was a wonderful experience. But I was standing there about to be introduced, and they had the before picture and the current, me, and all the stuff, and the lights and the camera, and I just thought, okay, I've done it, right? I'm standing here, I'm in my little size 6, and I'm feeling so great, and I've got my hair and makeup done, and why do I still feel so empty? Why do I still feel like I have no idea who I am, what I stand for? I was completely devoid of self-love. I had arrived, so I thought, right? I had achieved the goal that I had set for myself ever since I was a little girl. I had wanted not to be on Steve Harvey's show, but to be a certain size and to look a certain way. I felt like I have achieved my goal. Here I am. Why am I still not fulfilled? And it was a spiritual shift, really, inside of me that led to seeking, and at the time, unfortunately, for the next few years, grasping at straws, big time grasping at straws for me, straws of what's next, what else, or who else can fill the void for me. And it was job shifts, it was housing shifts, it was the start of a divorce process, it was complete self-abandonment that I was living in. And I was still seeking, and my seeking, when I had achieved this goal that I had set for myself, standing on that stage, right? I had achieved the goal of becoming this certain size or looking a certain way that I never had my entire life. My entire life I was obese, and I was still seeking. And that's, again, I wasn't evolved or healed or recovered enough to realize that it was a spiritual malady, spiritual deficit that I was in. But I didn't understand it back then. I thought it was just like, there's got to be something else. So I just kept seeking. And that this led to, a binge and restriction cycle, really looking right outside of myself for comfort and still trying to maintain the smaller size. You
Mhm.
know, I did, I maintained the weight loss. But I was, you know, not even just using food to escape emotions, right? Anymore. I was using people, money, sex, that restriction to escape, right? I was the white knuckled control that you talk about was constant. I was trying to control everything in my life,
Mhm.
which is such an illusion and really a fool's errand. And so I was in intense pain, and I was really just out of solutions, out of solutions. And everything that I was trying was taking me further into a hole of moral despair, really, and physical just uneasiness, emotional uneasiness. My moods were all over the place because I was trying to moderate processed foods once a week. Those included sugar and desserts once a week. So I'd have big mood swings every week. I would have, of course, big weight swings every week. And I leveraged that, after photo effect to use my new story or my body or social status to get attention, but I was miserable, just miserable. And 3 years after that Steve Harvey appearance, I was going through a divorce process. I was totally just, my bottom was total emotional darkness. I had exercise anorexia, financial, spiritual, almost financial bankruptcy, spiritual bankruptcy for sure. And I was on the verge of just like, hey, I've tried everything, including getting my health, and there's something wrong, still deeply wrong. And I'd say that was my bottom.
Do you think that you or people, us, me, anybody, do you think you have to hit rock bottom in order to move forward? You think that has to happen?
I did. For me, yeah. And everyone I've known that changed their lifestyle or changed their eating habits did it only after no one else, realized they were in enough pain that they were sick and tired of being sick and tired, as my family member who just changed his lifestyle says.
Yeah. No, I agree. I have a 4-year nursing degree from Wichita State, and I remember sitting in a classroom and we were talking about some emotional processing stuff that was pertinent for nurses to know at that time. And I was young, I was in my early 20s, so not that aware yet to the worldly things. But the teacher said, people do not change unless they're in crisis mode. Then it's up to them whether the change is permanent or afterwards they become comfortable again and just revert back. And it hit me like a lightning bolt. I had never heard that before. I'd never been exposed to that before in my first couple decades of life. And so that has always stayed with me, that in general, unless you're in crisis mode,
Nope.
people just don't make change. We are creatures of habit, unfortunately. The other thing that's interesting about rock bottom is, do you hit it alone? How many people do you drag with you on the way down?
What's your
Or,
experience with this?
well, I think that definitely my family has had to suffer because how could I possibly ever been my best wife, a good mother, now a grandmother, if you are so distracted? I think of the addiction as just a major distraction in your life. I'll call it a main focus. If the addiction, like I said earlier, is organizing your day,
Mhm.
that means there's not a lot of bandwidth to expand these other relationships, and it precludes you from connecting deeply with other people. Because let's take my wedding experience. Do you think I was connecting with the people that were at my table or the bride? It robbed me from having a what should have been an enjoyable evening of celebrating someone else, showing up for someone else, not thinking about me, but only uh, just being filled with joy for someone and then having wonderful conversation in the
Right.
evening.
Grateful for the family and the friends.
Yes. Do you think I cared about any of that? No. I had one mission. I was on a mission, and that's not understated. Get to the cake table. How shallow of a life is that? So
It was
yes, I took hostages with me. I definitely took hostages with me. And like I said, not interested in ever going out to dinner with my husband. Let's just stay home in this controlled environment. I don't want to risk anything. So I'm sure he would have wanted to do that, but
That's, you know, I really appreciate you saying that, sharing that memory of the wedding. You know, when my first husband and I were married, I also became, when I was in that white knuckled phase and really trying to hold on to my food sobriety, but I had no
mhm.
recovery. I just had sobriety. And well, I thought, right, I had sobriety 6 days a week,
Right.
except for that one day when I would binge with the
Yeah.
cheat meal, right? Which they're like, it's a cheat
Yeah.
meal. No, it's like cheat meals are saying to an alcoholic, it's okay once a week to have a booze,
Yes. Yes.
right? So
Yes.
that, but I was in that world because I looked hard enough, it wasn't that hard, to find research to support my addiction, which was, you can have one cheat meal a week and you'll be fine and you can manage your weight. And that's all I wanted to do, was manage my weight. I didn't think about it as recovery. I thought about it as weight management.
Yeah. Who else cares about anything else if you're skinny, right? Nothing else
That's what I
matters.
thought. Then until I stood on that stage and realized that everything else mattered. And everything, everything else. So what happened was, my husband, because I was so afraid to go out to eat, my husband at the time became very resentful and very, judgmental about, hey, you never wanted to do any of this. Like, what's the deal? You never want to go anywhere or do anything. And it's it's something that I still navigate now, not
Yeah.
the resentment, but I navigate, hey, is tonight the night that I can go out and eat? Maybe. I'm going to see how it goes. Or no, tonight's not the night that I can be around food cues. I'm really sorry. It's been a really stressful day. I need to just stay home tonight and relax and rest and recharge, and let's see what happens tomorrow. But I learned that over time, and I learned how to speak up for my needs over time. But in the meantime, like you mentioned the word hostages, I had for sure, my ex-husband was a hostage, that poor man, and so many others that were around me, even people that I worked with in this world of lifestyle change, right? People that I met along the way. We all sort of shared our sickness with each other.
Mhm. Were there other people, I'm just going back to that Steve Harvey show, that you met that had done the same thing as you?
Yes, there was three of us. So there was, they wanted somebody who'd lost 100 pounds, someone who lost 150 pounds, and someone who lost 200 pounds or more. So I was the 200 pounds or more woman. And it's so interesting because the one woman that was there, I don't remember which one she was very standoffish and very just not willing to talk to anyone. She was extremely guarded and rude, really. She just was not someone that you wanted to talk to.
Maybe she just didn't like you. I'm kidding.
Possibly, possibly. No, she's like this to everyone. She
I
just was
know.
not talk to anyone.
I'm kidding.
I thought, that's so interesting. And now I look at it as she was probably just trying, maybe nerves, but trying to control herself. Because you're on the Steve Harvey show and they're giving you all kinds of green room food and the
Oh,
catering tables there. Oh yeah. And I didn't know back then like how much of an irony that was. And there was another woman that I was on the show with, and you know, it has been a journey for her. We stayed in touch, and it's been a journey for her.
that's
Uh,
what I was wondering. If you all stayed in touch, how similar were your stories? Do you remember?
my story went one direction as far as, grasping at straws. She also went through a divorce as well,
Mm,
which they say is statistically is very probable.
right.
So
So interesting.
she had a little bit of a different journey, but ended up in the same place and, struggled with the processed food. It's just when you're not willing to admit, and I wasn't willing to admit that the processed food needed to be completely out, I was always going to struggle.
Don't
Once I,
you
I don't struggle.
don't you panic when you hear these gurus, and we'll talk about that in future episodes, all the gurus out there saying, "You can have one cheat meal."
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
I love what you
it's
said
crazy.
about, do you tell an alcoholic, "Okay, on Saturday, you can have just one."
Yeah, go ahead
It's
and have a beer. Get drunk on Saturday. Get totally drunk on Saturday. As long as you're good the next 6 days, you're fine.
So
You're
where
still
do these,
recovered.
yeah, where do these people come up with these ideas that it's okay for someone in recovery of any sort
Right.
to say you can just do a little? We don't really believe in moderation. We believe in abstinence. People with
Right.
addiction just, they've got to abstain, not moderate. The things that we're talking about were never designed to moderate. They were literally engineered. And I'm not talking about fruits and vegetables. I'm talking about processed food. When we talk about food addiction, it's really
Yes.
referencing processed food addiction, where these things are literally chemically engineered to drive you to eat more of it. That's its job. And they do it very well. So moderation is not possible. So we've learned over the years, I'm sure Jamie will agree with this, that we are our own experts through the trial and error.
Into our own
So
bodies.
so we've talked a lot about doom and gloom. These are tough stories to hear. They're too familiar. They hit a chord. It's upsetting. It makes me sick to my stomach that so many people are suffering silently from this and don't have a way out. But do you think there's payoffs in hitting rock bottom? What's the silver lining to rock bottom?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I was listening to you talk about abstinence, and it's something that in my journey, I would hear people ahead of me on the path of recovery, and they would say the same thing. And I would be like, that's such BS. There's no need for that. You can have a little bit of here, a little bit there. Or are you going to go the rest of your life and never have a piece of cake at a wedding? Like, it just felt like,
Yes. Yes.
exactly. But it felt like, no way, there's no way I can do it. And you know what? It's not about the weight. It's not about the weight. It's about the freedom from the obsession. And for me, the payoff to hitting rock bottom was I was so consumed with food, so consumed with the obsession over food, what I could, what I couldn't, where it would be, when I could have it next, what I couldn't have, what I was going to eat 3 days from now. I mean, it was insane. It was constant. I had so much brain power going towards food that the payoff of hitting rock bottom was peace in my head, and the food voices stopped. The food monkey I had on my back in a backpack for years was gone. Backpack gone, monkey gone. And I was clear-minded. I had a lot more focus and ability to focus, and energy to focus, because I wasn't so distracted with food.
That you said the one word that if I when I answered, I was going to say that the payoff to rock bottom is it's the journey back to peace. It's
Mm.
the pivoting point of now you're on the road to peace. That now when I'm going to a birthday party, I don't even have to negotiate what's happening there with the dessert table. And I think there's going to be 3 desserts. I already made that decision, a
Exactly.
firm decision, and it opens up room to do other things. Like you had mentioned, it gave you opportunities to do other things in your life. Like once I got off sugar, I started reading books. I
Mm.
never read books before. It opened up time, literal time. I had more time in my day, and it was like, why do I have more time in my day? It's so
Yes.
bizarre, but it's true. Once I got off sugar, I literally had more time to do the things that I enjoyed. So there is a payoff to rock bottom because you can't go down any further, right? There's only one direction to go from there.
That's right.
So
That's right.
changing the trajectory, and that's when you really start looking for a path out. You really want out. This is not fun anymore. I got to find a way out. And as I've talked about before, the ultimate gift to getting out is bringing others with you. I think about it being in the lifeboat,
In a
and
good way. In a good
I'm
way.
just yeah, yeah,
Bring others with you in a good way.
yeah, I'm getting out of the addiction and pulling people into recovery. I think about being in a lifeboat and just pulling people in. Come with me. I've got a way. I've got this figured out. You don't be out there in shark infested water anymore. I've
And
got to
that's
save.
why we're here.
And that's why we're here. That's, I'm going to say this, and I can't say this statistic enough. 1.6 million people die every year from diet related disease. We don't like that number.
Right.
If that weren't a statistic, we're here to change statistics. We
Right.
don't want you to be a statistic. We help change that statistic. We want to help others change that statistic too. That's the driving force behind what we're doing.
And one thing I want to just piggyback on real quick around that, when we talk about, pulling people in the boat in this way, when we're bringing our message out to people who are interested in hearing it, who want to, get better, who know that there's a problem in their food and they just don't exactly know how to navigate out of it. You're the people we're talking about pulling into our boat or giving you a lifeline or throwing you a lifesaver. But there are many people in my journey, I don't know about you, Paige, that I tried when I was first starting, tried to pull in to my journey with me. I would look at the way they ate and just go ahead and decide right then and there that they needed to come with me, or that don't you know that you could feel so much better if you ate this way or that way and didn't eat this or ate that. And I became this dispenser of unsolicited advice, and I made a lot of enemies.
No,
I
I
was-
agree. I agree. And we've talked about that before. If you see people who are doing things wrong,
Yeah. Yep.
when they're ready, they'll ask you. They're aware. They see what you're doing. They know.
Exactly. So if you're here listening to our message, we'll pull you in the boat. But we're not going to go put our message out there to people that are listening to cooking podcasts or watching cooking podcasts, right?
Yeah,
Because those are not our people.
we're fun people. We're great traveling companions. So come into our boat. Uh,
Exactly.
do we know? How do people know when they hit rock bottom? How do you know that? How do you know this is it? This is it. I've got to
For
change.
me, I mean, this is just my journey, and it's extreme maybe, but so was my addiction. I mean, I was suicidal. I didn't want to keep going. So that to me was rock bottom, where I thought either I figure out what I'm doing or I figure out how to not be here anymore.
Yeah. I think for me, I didn't have that one pivotal moment, like I said, but I was open. I was still struggling to find the right answer. And then I heard someone give a speech about recovery, and it was something that I wasn't aware of before. So for me, just that consistent rock bottom kept my mind open to learn more, to find a way out, to look for the verbiage of what's happening.
Yeah.
So there's another silver lining to it. So we have a couple of seed questions that people send in that we like to address each week. One is, I keep hearing I need to get off flour and sugar, but how? It's in everything.
Yeah. So this is interesting because, again, it's been a lot of education for me to understand and apply this. We talk about really, when I reflect back on this, there are two choices, and we are not prescribing anything. This is really an individual journey, like Paige was talking about. The whole point of recovery is to become your own expert, become your own guru, and basically know yourself well enough to know what you can and can't handle. You can do cold turkey with sugar and flour, or you can do the shades of gray approach. Around my trigger foods, which included anything processed, any baked good, any dessert, any, ice cream or dairy kind of dessert, any of that, cakes, cookies, pies, candies, all of it, that for me needed to be cold turkey. Once I realized it was an addiction that I was not going to find my way out of, it had to be cold turkey. And what was a shades of gray approach is, really that you can add in healthy foods versus eliminating all the bad ones. So you can think about, okay, I'm gonna, go out to this restaurant, and instead of ordering a side of French fries, I'm gonna get a big green salad with my meal, and try to incorporate more healthy food, more fibrous foods. Fiber is so good for cravings and so good for blood sugar regulation. There's that option, and then you get to a point where you really notice how you feel really good when you do that. The better you feel, the more whole healthy foods you eat, you'll notice that you'll want to start gravitating more towards it. It will take longer, and it will be, in my experience, a much rockier journey. Right, I was very emotionally dysregulated when I tried to do that. When I tried to eat that way, I was moody. I had blood sugar spikes and crashes, and all kinds of brain fog, and I just wasn't myself. And that to me was a harder road. However, the one caveat I'll say on the shades of gray is there is sugar, flour, and artificial sweeteners in so many things that are hidden. There are 56 names that we know of today, probably more, for sugar on food labels. 56. Anything with an OSE essentially is a
Hmm.
derivative. So you think about the big one, high fructose corn syrup. Everyone knows that's just a adulterated form of sugar, but and really just extremely toxic for us. But there are so many maltodextrin, all anything with those names on a sauce, on a label, on a bottle of something that you may be addressing, that you're thinking about. I'm putting this on this really beautiful, healthy, whole food
I know.
meal, and now I've made it something that is going to give me brain fog and mood swings and cravings and make my joints hurt, right? And because it's just got those ingredients in it that you didn't
Yeah.
know. That's where the shades of gray for me helped a lot, because it didn't, if I had to go from eating whatever I wanted whenever I wanted, or even just eating one meal a week that it was a junk meal, to eating lettuce with lemon juice on it, there's no way I could have sustained it. There's
Really?
no way.
That sounds so appealing. So for me, I have to say that I had to quit cold turkey on the sugar. There is no shades of gray for me with sugar. I literally cannot have one bite. My brain lights up like a Christmas tree, and I literally can't think of anything else until I would continue to get my drug. So I knew it was that powerful for me. So I did do the cold turkey with the sugar. Now of everything else, um, I'm not perfect in everything else. I just have that one non-negotiable. I've been in recovery over a couple of years. And so every once in a while, I will have a few of the other things. I don't go seek it out. If we're at a big family dinner or out to eat or something like that, I may have a bite of something.
Right.
But in general, I do all my food prep at home because I avoid those situations. I don't want to fill my body with that. I want to feel good. And you know what's interesting too, and I'm curious if you found this to be true. After you get off sugar, your taste buds change.
Mhm.
And so the cravings go away in 3 to
Yes.
5 days when you're off sugar, the cravings go away. And the longer out you get, you fruit and vegetables all becomes more naturally
Very.
sweet, and you
Yes.
learn to crave those things. Your body gets back
Yes.
to the state it was meant to be when it was
That's right.
designed. So it was never designed to live off sugar,
No.
that chemically processed product. So it does get easier. It gets easier. It gets
That's why
easier.
we never see a fat deer. Let's be honest. We never
I
see a
love it.
fat deer in
I
the wild, unless they're in
Yeah.
captivity. Then we do.
Yeah, exactly. I
Right.
know. When you say that, I always think about how many overweight house pets there are. But if
Mhm.
animals in the wild, they just don't
Yeah.
do that. So,
Yeah,
oh,
it's true. But we got
so
one more question from viewers.
yep, go ahead.
They write in that they hear conflicting messages about weighing themselves every day. Is it really that bad to do that?
Well, it's embarrassing to admit, but I used to weigh myself twice a day. That's how fanatic I was about the scale. And I have to tell you, guess what? That number on that scale, it never made me lose weight. But here's what it did. It made me a crazy person. The scale was the one. It should have said, instead of giving me the number, it should have just flipped up a smiley face or a frowny face to
Yeah.
determine. The scale was the
Just
one who was in
self-worth.
charge of how I felt that day.
Right.
So I gave up the scale a few years ago as well. Right before I had started recovery, I gave up the scales. I was starting to do more weightlifting and my weight kept going up and it was freaking me out, but my pants fit better. And so I just said,
Yeah.
one New Year's, I'm like, done.
Yeah.
I'm done. And I never went back. Statistics will tell us, science will tell us that the scale is not beneficial in any way in helping anyone lose weight. In fact, sometimes it's just the opposite. So it's a tough thing to break up with the scale. It's like a bad boyfriend. It's hard to get away from, but I don't know about you, but for me, it didn't do me any favors other than psychological damage and
No,
just,
no. It determined my self-worth. I used to call it my self-worth meter, right? Am I having a good day or a bad day? And I'll say this, when I was really struggling like that, 2014 through 2017, I decided, I thought, I don't know, I know why my addiction was progressing, and I thought it was a good idea to compete in a physique competition.
Oh,
I spent 40 years being judged for my body, or almost 40 years. Let me go ahead and literally get judged for my body. So I trained, and it's a lot of time working out and a lot of time, food prepping and eating a lot of, boiled chicken and broccoli. Of course, by the end of it, they want you at a certain weight, and you have to be at a certain body fat percentage. And every week they're measuring you, and it really was a very sick pursuit for me. And it really accelerated my disease. And I kind of knew it would, but I was grasping at straws. Even then, I was grasping at straws. Doing that competition, by the way, there's a couple of them I did, and that's what led me to the Steve Harvey stage, right? So I had gotten some national recognition.
oh,
Harvey found me. So I say all that to say I was deep in my progression by that point. And when I used to get on the scale every week, I knew I had to weigh in the next morning. I used laxatives. I mean, it was a short period of time, thank goodness, but it was a few weeks where I would use laxatives every Friday before I knew I had a Saturday morning weigh-in. And it was not, I mean, it was bad. That number on the scale ruled me, and I was willing to do something to my body to make sure that whatever it took, I would hit.
I'm going to tell you a joke that I remember watching this country western music where this young girl was trying to be a country western star, and one of the older women who was already established in the industry said, "I only have one piece of advice for you, honey. Don't ever use laxatives because you never know when they'll kick in." And I have never forgot that line
Because
from
you
that
never what
lady.
again? You never what again?
You never know when it will kick in.
That's right.
Never use laxatives, honey, because you never know when it's going to kick in. And
Right.
if you're out there on stage, you definitely don't want to be
Right.
in that position.
Oh,
So
it was horrible.
that was enough to scare me off. That one stuck with me, and I'm like, note to self.
Yep. Yep. And yeah, so many things. So yeah, when I talk about that, for me, it was really a dangerous relationship. It was like Paige was saying, a bad boyfriend for sure. There was nothing good about that relationship that I had with the scale. And now I got the great piece of advice years ago from someone in the industry. She's sort of in struggled herself, and she says she has a pair of barometer jeans that she keeps.
Yes.
When those jeans get tight, she knows she's got to rein it in and figure out maybe some things snuck in, maybe she's gone out one more time that week, with eating a restaurant meal that she didn't know if there were ingredients in, who knows. But between that, right, barometer jeans are great. But if you're trying to do a scale, you go out to eat a couple of times, which many people do. That's just part of life in the States and really around the world. You have all kinds of weight gain and weight loss from water weight throughout a given cycle. And we'll talk openly here about perimenopause and menopause and all of the weight fluctuations that happen with that. To me, to be on a scale even once a week or a month would just be for me, crazy making.
We'll end with this last statement. This is my big statement around the scale. Is I feel like if you are doing absolutely everything in your physical power to take care of your health, and there's nothing more that you can be doing, it doesn't matter what the number on the scale is, because there's nothing left to do. If you're doing everything you need to be doing,
that's right. Scale won't matter.
It doesn't. You can't do anything more anyway. So why bother with a number? Just work on living a healthy lifestyle and enjoying the peace that comes from eating single ingredient whole foods.
Yeah.
So
And we're going to talk in the next episode 4, about the day we realized we were an addict. So we've kind of danced around it, but we're going to go into detail in the next episode. So
can't wait.
Thanks. Me too. Thanks for listening to Real Food Recovery. I'm Jamie.
I'm Paige.
See you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.